Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes weekly webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm so happy you're joining me for this episode of Saturday with Sara. Today, I'm excited to show you two gorgeous junk journal collections from our friends at Ciao. We have Codex and Secret Garden. Now, these two journal ephemera books feature 32 double-sided sheets printed on the most gorgeous high quality paper, and each one contains 160 plus beautifully designed imagery. These collections also each have 4 transparent adhesive pages inside. So let's take a closer look, and we can start with our Secret Garden collection. So when I open this up, you can see immediately those beautiful cutout elements here, as well as the first of the adhesive sheets. So with these, you'll simply use your scissors to cut out the images that you want and apply them to your background. So here you can see some of these beautiful images. It's a very delicate floral collection. You've got some background elements in there as well as some larger pieces too. Now there are a variety of color palettes in here. So you'll see you've got some lavenders, you've got some pinks and some browns, some vintage colors in here. The blue is awfully beautiful, and then that soft spring green. So just as I'm flipping through here, you can see how full this is with so many different elements. Here we're coming again to another one of the adhesive sheets, some nice background elements on there. And again, really easy to cut those and simply apply them to your background. So here we come again, another one of the adhesive sheets. Also then here in the back, you'll notice that you've got some cutout elements that can then fold up to be pockets and to hold maybe some little treasures on there, and a nice neutral background on the back. So this is the Secret Garden collection. Now let's look at the Codex collection. This is going to take us to a totally different place and time with some Leonardo da Vinci inspired imagery. Now here you'll notice that again we've got the same format with the adhesive sheet as well as our all over backgrounds and our coordinating images here. So some Mona Lisa eyes and a nice enigmatic smile that you see there. Beautiful cutouts here with these adhesive elements. Now these are just a treasure to use. Really nice for card making, scrapbooking, if you do any kind of altered books or mixed media journals. This is a really great format. So let me flip again through here. Now you'll notice with this color palette, it is a beautiful aged vintage look. So this will coordinate really nicely together. Again, more of the adhesive elements. You've got some hints of green in here too with some of our botanical images. And again, you've got some cutouts that can then be folded up into pockets and other types of paper crafts. So here again, you've got one in there. And then on the back, once again, you've got a nice neutral background on there. Now you'll notice that these are a slightly larger size. It's an A4 size, so they measure 8.3 inches by 11.7 inches, which is a really nice size for either scrapbooking, card making, and paper crafting in general. Now together, these two journal ephemera books offer some really diverse collections of papers and embellishments that coordinate beautifully and make it really easy to create some unique paper crafts. I'm really glad you're here today, and I'm excited to explore the creative possibilities with you. So come play with us. Let's begin with this card, which uses papers and adhesive images from the Codex collection. So I'll start with the background and then we can work our way up. Now to cover the card front, I'm using a light blue solid cardstock, and this comes from the Tulip Parade cardstock pack, and it's this really beautiful blue, which just happened to perfectly coordinate with the blue in the pattern paper that I'm using here. So on top of that blue solid cardstock, I've got this gorgeous blue and brown pattern paper which I distressed a little bit with water and also with the Velvet Fawn dye-based ink pad. This is a classic technique that I really like, especially when working with vintage style papers like this set. So you may be able to notice here I've got the edges kind of rolled up. If you could touch it, you would feel that it is crinkled. It's been crumpled and then smoothed out. And then I've also got some of the brown on here. So let's have a look at how to do this technique. Now I'm working onto my craft mat. That's to protect my work surface here. And I know I need to have my Velvet Fawn ink pad and then also a mister bottle with some water here. So what I'm going to do is simply mist my cardstock or my pattern paper. I'm not soaking it, but I'm just misting lightly. I want it to be damp but not soaking wet. And then from there, I'm just going to kind of crumple this up. I'm not scrunching it into a ball, although you definitely could do that. I kind of like to have the edges a little bit distressed too, so I'm going to kind of work around those. And then while this is still crumpled like this, I'm going to take my Velvet Fawn ink pad. Now this is a dye-based ink pad, so when I hit the high peaks of that crumpled cardstock, you can see how that's really picking up the color there. And like many distressing techniques, you can do as much or as little as you want to. I also went around the outside edges of my cardstock just to give some more shading and color on there. And it won't take very long for it to be dry, and then once it is dry, I can simply add it to my card front. Now let me bring back in my card and we can take a look here and you can see, once again, I didn't tack down all of the corners on here because I wanted this to roll up just a little bit. And you can use a pencil or maybe an awl or something to kind of guide that roll up on here if you want to. And then simply adhere this in place. And then on top, I've got these two cutout images. Now these come in the collection, and as you can see here are two other ones that coordinate really nicely. So I just simply cut those out and I inked around the edges also using the Velvet Fawn ink pad. Now with this one here on the printed piece, there's a little bit of a kind of a faux distressed edge which I went along with and just trimmed these out with scissors and then pop them onto the card front. Now the word secret is one of the adhesive images and I just applied that to a label cutout here. And then I've got a flower cutout which I've got balancing on the other side. And then here I have a leaf adhesive element which I simply cut out and positioned right on top of that patterned background paper. And then finally I've got a bow tied in jute twine for a little bit of softness. And this is a set that I use a lot. I really like how it just adds a little touch to a project without adding a lot of bulk. So I'm using some jute twine with this collection too. Then for the card inside, I have just a strip of the blue and brown pattern paper. It is undistressed, so I just simply glued that down. And then I've got this cutout image here. And on top, I have a flower adhesive element. You can see the shine as I'm wiggling that here. So let's take a look at the adhesive images and how to use those. So this is one of the sheets that I've got from the collection. And you'll notice that you've got a lot of different images on here. Simply grab your scissors and trim these out. Now the backing here is clear. So what I like to do is trim around the image. You don't have to go all the way up to the edge, but I do cut these out fairly close to the image so I don't have any of that showing, any of the liner showing, although it is, as I mentioned, it is clear. So here's one of the images that I've got there trimmed out, and then I'll just pull this off like any sticker and simply place it down. And you can see just how beautiful those images are, and of course how easy they are to add to your project. So that was placing one onto white cardstock, but as you can see, you can incorporate some of the pattern backgrounds in there as well. So this is just how easy it is to combine those beautiful papers and images. Let's have a look at another card. This card also uses the Codex collection, this time creating some layers with a doily and a border from the Luscious Lace cutting die set from Hot Off the Press. Now for this card, if I angle this, I think you can see that I've trimmed off a portion of the front panel of the card blank. So before I added any of my pattern papers, I just took my paper trimmer and removed about an inch from that top panel. And that will accommodate my lace border, just like so. So the border that I'm using and the doily that I'm using are both coming from, as I mentioned, the Luscious Lace die set. Now, as you can see, this is one that I use quite a lot. It's one of my favorites, especially when working with vintage style cards. So because these two elements are really pretty intricate, my suggestion is to also use the quick release die paper. And this is a really cool and kind of a must-have element for me when I'm working with intricate dies. So I've cut off a little snippet here from that quick release die paper, and I'll show you how it layers up. So I'll take my cardstock that I'm going to be die cutting from, and then I'll position down my quick release die paper, which is beautifully decorated, and then take my die and place it cutting side down in place like so. And then I like to use the hunky-dory low-tack tape to secure my dies in place. So I'll just tear off a little portion of this and secure it down like so, and then run this through my die cutting machine, and then I will have something that looks like this. And that quick release die paper really does help to remove all of those little innies from, not only from your die, but also from the paper that you're die cutting from. And same goes with that doily, but with a twist. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that card focal. So after I've die cut my lace border, what I've done is simply covered just the top panel of my card with this beautiful floral paper. So if we can kind of visualize here how I've got that covered on here. And then I've added just a portion of the tiles paper. And you can see that tucked underneath my doily image on here. So I've just grabbed my scissors and used some of those lines to cut out a portion, an uneven portion of the tiles paper. And then I inked the edges of that using the Velvet Fawn ink pad. Now before I glued the tiles paper in place, I got my doily border and positioned that down, glued that in place, and then nested this on top so that I've actually got my doily, my lace doily border going in between my tiles paper and my floral paper. If I lift this up, you can see just a little bit there how that's glued in place. So that's my secret for having it tucked inside there and just really nicely accenting the bottom of my card. And then I've lined the inside back of the card with some brown cardstock, and this is coming from the Botanical Library cardstock set. I've got it buried underneath all of my other things here, but you can see this is that beautiful brown, and this also has some really nice colors that coordinate with today's collections, both of them. So I've got that on the inside back, and positioning elements so that nothing will kind of overlap with that lace border. Then when it comes to my card focal here, I've got some layering going on here using the round doily from the Luscious Lace set. And what I've done here is I die cut my top doily portion using some brown pattern paper, but here I'm going to show it to you on white. And here you can really see the intricate design and how important it would be to have that quick release die paper. Well, I wanted things to look a little bit tattered and distressed. So I die cut a second doily image, but this time I did not use the quick release die paper on purpose. And you can see here that this is giving me the outline of the shape and some of the little innies in here, but definitely not all of them. So then what I can do is layer the two together, and I'll have the outside shape, but I'll have a really cool sort of tattered effect. Now to glue the two of these elements together, I like to use sticky specks. And these are what I use for a lot of intricate dies. You can see they're micro dot adhesive. And you've got two pieces together, which you can simply pull apart and use to get those micro dots apart. Now, you've got some large sheets. I like to just simply cut off a portion. And here you can see on the yellow portion, there are some micro dots. This is the liner. So what I recommend you do is gently pull this apart. I never pull them all the way apart, but I'll position this down like so, and then pull this off. Now I will still use this piece over and over and over again until it's totally bald. And then what I can do is overlap this like so. And I don't have any liquid glue sort of squeezing out. I don't have any mess. I have just two elements glued really nicely together. So sticky specks for the win on something like this. And this is what I've done to create my focal piece. Then on top, I have a flower sticker. Now I've backed this onto white cardstock and then trimmed around both of the pieces. I wanted this to be popped up on foam tape, and I also wanted it to be really nicely crisp and clean to see, unlike blending into the background like we saw with the previous card. So I wanted this to stand out and be nice and clear. Then I've added some adhesive images, one right here and one underneath here, and those are just blending into the background papers really nicely. And I finish it off with a 4U cutout and a jute twine bow here. Then for the card inside, I have a cutout. I've got a red adhesive flower and a white flower cutout layered on top, and then a beautiful gold script dazzle kind of overlapping all of those elements. Now we're switching over to the Secret Garden collection, and here I have a card that uses these beautiful elements with the pattern papers. I have a pocket cutout and a tag, plus I also incorporated some of the golden botanical dies. This is from hot off the press. So first I've covered my card front with this beautiful floral stripe paper. You can see I don't have very much left, but I wanted you to see the entire pattern and how beautifully it coordinates with the bird pattern paper. Now with these, I've simply trimmed down the bird pattern paper, smaller than my card front. I matted it onto some green cardstock from the Tulip Parade collection, and everything has been inked with velvet fawn. So all three of these have been inked to give a little bit of definition between those designs. And then on top, I've got this cutout pocket, which is holding my tag here. Now, both of the collections contain several of these little pockets, and they just make such fun accents. So here's one sheet from the Secret Garden collection. You can see these two pockets here. Now, you'll notice the design here in the center, and then it will have 3 tabs, and those are going to be folded over to create your pocket. So all you need to do is get your scissors and trim out your shape like so. And then I like to use a ruler and a bone folder to do the pocket construction. So I've just simply taken a ruler and align it with the edge there, and then I just fold up my pocket tabs. Now I know I am working from the front, and that's because this is where I can see the lines more easily. And I'll flip this over so you can see what I mean. So once I score those edges, then I can flip this over. You can see there are no lines on there. And then I'll simply fold the tabs backward. Now here I like to use my bone folder, and this will give me a nice crisp fold all the way around. Now you can use a double-sided adhesive to glue this down. I also really like using foam tape. So I'll trim down a little bit of foam tape and apply it just to those tabs and then secure it to my card front or card inside too. And that foam tape just gives a little bit more depth in that pocket and allows you to tuck in not only a tag like I have here, you could also add in a note. It also will fit a standard gift card size too. So if you wanted to create a gift with your card project too, this is a great way to do it. And that foam tape will give just a little bit of extra room. So inside here, I've got a tag, one of the tag cutouts, and I've used the Hugs Dazzle here, and I've trimmed off the ends of the word on either side so that it will fit. And then I've just stapled on some jute twine to the tag, and that can just go right inside the pocket. Also on top of the pocket, I have a little dazzle heart swirl. Now, these are the script dazzles. I use them a whole lot. Here's one of the gold sheets, one of my favorites, and you can see that beautiful script on there. You can also see there are lots of little accents, flowers, and hearts, and this heart swirl. Now that heart swirl has a heart dazzle inside. Of course, Hot Off the Press always wants to give you as many images as will possibly fit on a sheet. So when you pull this off, you'll have an empty heart space in there. And what I've done is simply backed it with a little bit of green cardstock and then position this down on top of the pocket. And you can see I've got some little heart dazzles in here as well. Now with the foliage that I have tucked behind here, this is one of my new favorite die sets. This is the Golden Botanical set from Hot Off the Press. And you can see all of those images on here, 9 in total. And these work beautifully as they stand alone, or of course you can do as they show on the back here. Debbie has created a card with lots of those elements going together. I think this is just a gorgeous set. So I've simply die cut the two floral pieces from white cardstock and glued those down. And then I have this beautiful leaf element, which has also been glued right down on there on the card front. And I like how it really creates some nice movement and dimension back here. Then for my card inside, I have this cutout image, which I've actually torn out from the sheet rather than cut out. And I used a glue stick to glue that down. So let's have a look at this. I'll close up my card and then we can see. Here's one of the images that I could have cut out, but I like to just tear around kind of a free form image around there. And then what I do is just grab my trusty glue stick and apply some glue to the back. And I'm going to make sure that I get around all of the edges that I've torn. And then simply glue this down. Now you could do it onto a white surface or plain cardstock. And in this case, I wanted you to see how that looks blended into a patterned background. So you've got some options there. And what I've done here is simply glued this right to the inside back of my card. I added another botanical die cut piece here. The tag is a cutout from the collection. I inked around this pretty heavily with that Velvet Fawn ink pad. And then I added an adhesive butterfly, which I've trimmed around and placed right down. And then I've got my word dazzle right on top. Both of today's collections have images that are meant to be cut and folded, like the little pockets, as well as some larger elements like this envelope. So I didn't glue this all together because I thought you might want to see it unfolded first. So I'll unfold this. You can see that kind of neutral patterned background on there. As with our smaller pocket, you've got some little tabs here to fold up. Now, here I'm using the extra sticky tape, and this comes on a roll like so. I like using this when I've got something that needs to be glued firmly in place. So I've just added some tabs on here, and I would just remove the liner and then fold this up and position it in place, and that will hold this envelope together really nicely. And then you've got your top flap here, which folds over, and you could even use one of the adhesive elements to secure that too if you wanted to. So this is the envelope construction, very simple to do. On the front, I've also done some decorating here, and here I'm adding a die cut butterfly that I made with one of the adhesive backgrounds. So you may remember when we were flipping through the background that looks like this. You can do die cutting with those adhesive portions too. The trick, of course, is that you want to first apply that background to a cardstock so that it's got some stiffness to it, takes away that adhesive, and then you can add your die cutting in here too. So another nice technique to add along. Now the butterfly is one from Hot Off the Press. This is their Butterflies and Hearts collection. You can see lots of images on here, and I'm using these two large butterflies. I'll pop those off, and you can see here what I've done is simply taken the intricate butterfly after I've applied that adhesive background to a cardstock, a lighter weight cardstock, nothing really heavy, and then pop this down. Now here I would really recommend using that quick release die paper because you've got some layers going together. So that's how I've added that, and let me show you here with another one of the backgrounds. This is a beautiful one, and I've applied this to a yellow cardstock so that it really creates a nice vintage look. Position that down, run it through the die cutting machine with that quick release paper, and then I've got a butterfly that looks like this. So again, a really pretty effect. Now you've got your outline butterfly too, and here I thought, oh, I'll just die cut it from a white cardstock, and this will show up really nicely. And then you can glue the two together like so. Now the sticky specks are a great option for gluing this down, and that will of course give you the security without any kind of wet adhesive coming out from in between those intricate layers there. So that's how I've created the butterfly on the front, and I added some little heart dazzles here in the butterfly center. I've got a flower adhesive piece kind of blending in with the background portion of my envelope too. Then after I made the envelope, I thought I should make a card to go inside, but Hot Off the Press's 5 by 6.5 inch cards are just a smidge too big. So you could either cut off maybe 1/2 inch from the bottom of the card front, or you could die cut a card like I did here. So with this card, let me move aside the envelope for a second. Again, I'm using another one of the die sets. This is a new to me die set from Hot Off the Press. It's the 5 elliptical cutting dies, and these work really nicely for just basic shapes, and you can also use them to create some nested focals like Debbie did here on the back. So I'm using the largest of the shapes for my card, and what I'll do is simply take my card blank, position this down, cutting side down, and I'm aligning the top with the top fold of the card. So the fold of my card blank is here, and I'm just going to position this like so. And then once again, grab some of my hunky-dory low-tack tape, secure that in place, and run it through my die cutting machine. And then I will have my card that looks like so. So I, of course, could do this with any of the sizes. I used the largest of those elliptical shapes, though, because this fitted perfectly inside my envelope. Now, before I die cut my card, I covered it with this really pretty collage pattern paper, and then I die cut the smaller elliptical piece to create this wood pattern design here on top. All of the edges have been inked with velvet fawn, and I added some of the swirls from the butterfly die set, and then this adhesive butterfly. And I've got the word memories as a cutout popped up on some foam tape. And then I used the dazzle word happy and kind of incorporated the two there. Then for my card inside, I have another nested elliptical piece. You can see how beautifully these all nest together. I've got a flower sticker here and a butterfly die cut from the butterfly set, and the words miss you. I wanted to share this sweet little box from the Secret Garden set with you as our final project. So this is a pyramid style box, and you can make this really easily by simply cutting it out, inking the edges, and then folding it and securing it all together with ribbon, or as I've done with some jute twine. Now there's no adhesive required for the box construction, but I did use foam tape and some liquid glue to apply the embellishments around the edges. So let's have a quick look at those, and then I will open up the box. Now on 3 of the sides, I have a cutout from the Secret Garden collection and a leaf or a flower from the Golden Botanical die set. So the cutouts are popped up with some foam tape, and then the die cuts are tucked underneath with glue, as you can see there. Then on the 4th side, I've got this tag cutout, and I've just added the dazzle word hugs on here. Then the tag is simply threaded onto the jute twine, which is holding the box all together. So when I untie the bow here, then I'll be able to open this up and we can take a look inside. So to do a little bit of wiggling here to get that tag free. And then I'll slide this off so that we can really see inside the box. So when I unfold this, you can see that I've used a hole punch to punch a hole, a small one, at the tip of each one of those pyramid triangles. So all the way around, one in each of those. And that's what I'm threading my jute twine through to hold everything together. So again, you're going to want to fold in those tips, but no glue is required. So those will all come together like so. And then you've got your jute twine going through, and you can tie everything up together. And then I've threaded on my hugs tag on here before doing the final bow on there. It does really help to have a second pair of hands to help you with this one, but I do think this is just so much fun to make and construct, and a perfect size for gifts of all different kinds. I think it makes a really special presentation and would be super fun to personalize to suit the recipient. Now with this project, I folded everything up and secured the ribbon or the jute twine in place, and then I added my decorations on the outside. So I think that's a little bit easier than trying to do that before you tie everything all up. So that is our final project of the day today. We've had so much to explore, and I've had such a great time with this collection. So a big thank you to you for joining me today, and a big thank you to our friends at Ciao for these 2 gorgeous collections. I really had so much fun, and I hope you did too. We're really glad that you're here, and we are so happy you're part of the Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, see this webisode on paperwishes.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube, have a look in the description box below this video. You'll find a link that will take you to our Paper Wishes webisodes page, and you can see everything I just mentioned. If you enjoyed our video today, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up. It helps people to find our channel. And don't forget to subscribe. We create 3 to 5 videos each week, so there's always something fun to inspire your creative spirit.